suppose people expect jewellery to be gold and pearls or diamonds. It's obvious, but we forget that a lot of those materials are coming from a long way away and they're actually quite foreign to the city environment. So I started looking for materials that were everywhere within my day-to-day. The dominant material I'm using now is the expanded polystyrene or styrofoam, and that's something I've collected from wheelie bins, or people have donated it to me. People now know that I'm always looking out for stuff, and they'll go, "So Mark, what's the kind of plastic you're looking for now?" And I'm like, "Oh, you know those big white boxes?" Like, "Yeah, the ones you get broccoli." And I'm like, "Yeah, keep those for me." Because that's virtually always white, I've been looking for other sources of plastic that I can use for colour. Pens, like the cases of pens, like the plastic exterior, or from different appliances. Like I've used like an old vacuum cleaner, an old TV, again just the plastic casing. In other cases, broken car light covers. Sometimes things like that you can find just lying around, like on the street after an accident. It's just always sort of keeping an eye out for something that I can get. This one, I think that one's my favourite. It's the coating anyway is the plastic from the cigarette filters. I guess not many people realise that the filters are plastic. It's a cellulose acetate. The initial sort of experimental process, it was just very open. I just wanted to see what I could do. And the experiments themselves were, I guess, subjecting different plastics to different sort of tortures to see how they would respond. With the polystyrene, it reacts with acetone as a solvent. These actually start as a large object, like 2 or 3 times the size. The process actually shrinks them down to a harder, more rigid material. One of the problems I found with plastic was that it's quite light. It tends to have a feeling of being cheap or tacky, and I think people naturally put plastic in that sort of zone. It's easy to think of the precious metals as, well, especially in jewellery, that, you know, obviously the precious metals are the high end. If it's plastic, it's a copy, or often it's trying to mimic more valuable materials. You can equate preciousness to a heavy feeling, or you could flip it and say equate preciousness to a really light, delicate feeling. I mean, mainly the idea was to pose that question: what does value mean? You know, what is preciousness? If jewellery is made out of plastic, does that mean it's not precious? If I put a precious metal in there in the mix, does that make it more precious? But the funny thing is, in reality, most of the value in that work just comes down to the labour that's involved in making it by hand. When people ask me about if it's recycled, generally I'd say no. But then I'm also thinking that denying it almost makes it, yes, it is sort of about being recycled, but to me it's more about just the everyday materials. For me, I just like making things that people might enjoy wearing.